Welcome to Building the Future. I'm your host, Kevin Horick. The radio and TV version of the show air in over 12 states. This includes both coasts and Silicon Valley. The show also airs in the UK, Caribbean, and Australia. For full show times, plus past episodes of the TV and radio show, please visit buildingthefutureshow.com. We just launched a free online community to connect past guests, listeners, and others. This community will allow you to network, chat on Slack, or get help with anything else, and a lot more. If you're interested in joining the community, buying some merch, sponsoring the show, or signing up for the newsletter, please go to buildingthefutureshow.com. The show is a proud media partner for the 11th Annual Media Excellence Awards, which are produced by Access Entertainment in Los Angeles, California. The Media Excellence Awards are recognized as the most influential awards show honoring innovation and leadership in all things mobile entertainment, lifestyle, and technology. For more information on how to submit to these awards, please visit mediaxawards.com. Welcome back to the show. Today we have Chad Gabriel. He's the Sherpa of Purpose. Chad, welcome to the show.
Hey, Kevin. How are you, man?
Very well. Your title actually is very intriguing to me, but maybe before we kind of get into all the fun stuff that you're working on, let's get to know you a little bit better and start off with where you grew up.
Absolutely. Yeah, so I grew up in the south suburbs of Chicago. A regular kind of suburban kid. Loved playing outside, riding my bike and that kind of thing. And, I was pretty active in baseball for most of my youth. And, today I coach Little League travel baseball out here.
Oh, nice.
Went off to the University of Illinois and studied electrical engineering there. And
what got you into that, out of curiosity?
How did I get into that? For the wrong reasons. For the wrong reasons, man. So driving around, with my parents, we didn't come from a lot of money, but I'd always ask, hey, mom and dad, how do people, who has those houses, the big, the starter castles, and
interesting
doctors, lawyers, and engineers. And okay, so that's in the back of my mind as a kid growing up. And, it's always that, wow, those are fabulous. And also math and science were always really just easy for me. Critical thinking, that kind of stuff, just Legos and tinkering. And so, yeah, and U of I, one of the top engineering schools in the country, and figured, what the heck, let's try to get one of those big houses and see where that goes. And like I said, what I would today, in hindsight, I'd say the wrong reasons.
Interesting. Sure. You mean in the sense of chasing money? Is that fair?
Yeah, exactly. Not following my heart, my passion, and also largely not being clear on what that was back then. So, yeah.
Okay. So you graduate, walk me through your career kind of up until what you're doing now. And you actually decided to go back to school, which you're currently in, correct?
Well, it's an executive scholar program that I do kind of part-time at Kellogg here. It's it's a kind of a 1-year boot camp type of deal, once a year boot camp.
Okay.
Yep. So I was about to graduate. I'm a senior at U of I, and I had done some internships with the power company out here, and a couple others with some IT firms downtown. And, it got to a point where it's like, oh man, I don't want to be working with circuit diagrams and schematics, and
Sure.
Generally want to work with people who are more outgoing. And I also want to use more of my kind of artistic creativity, just whether it's graphics design or music, whatever way I would express artistically seemed limited in that career path. So I'm freaking out now. I'm 4 years into college at U of I, the hardest 4 years of my life. And talked to my guidance counselor, and he's like, Chad, don't worry, man. He's like, you've taken a lot of computer science classes. I graduated in 2000. So
okay.
He's like, you've had a curriculum that's very similar to a computer science major or a computer engineer. And he's like, there's some options here. He's like, have you thought about web design and web development consulting? Because I could weave in, the creative side with kind of the systems design side. And
right.
One of the things that he said that really stuck with me is like, electricity, it's on or it's off. Programming, it's if or if not. And I'm like, I didn't really appreciate that at the time, but it was so true. Very true, right? And
yeah, very much so. Yeah, interesting.
To be able to step back and say, I can still design and develop complex systems. They just don't involve wires necessarily. You're talking about front end, back end database stuff. And I mean,
sure.
So I decided to do my senior design project for the U of I electrical engineering program for people to basically check out oscilloscopes and multimeters and whatever tools they need for the lab. And so that was my first venture into web development, application development. And I loved it. So yeah, I got hired out of school by March 1st, which was a US Web / Whitman Hart merger. And as a consultant. And at that time, again, a lot of kind of volatility in the market, lots of money, lots of people growing quick companies. And so March 1st, 6 months after I started, went bankrupt. And,
oh, wow.
There were checks that I had been written that wouldn't clear. I was engaged to be married. I was just starting my first mortgage payments on a townhouse that my wife, or my soon-to-be wife, were having built, and my first round of car payments. So I'm freaking out, right? And 8 days later, I get a job offer here at Tuthill, and I've been here ever since. So that's 17 years ago, over 17 years ago now. And I was hired as essentially what we call a webmaster back in the day. So
sure, I remember those days. Yeah.
Right. So yeah, that was
that or multimedia specialist or something along those lines, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly. So that was my kind of venture through school into IT, right?
Okay.
And then about 10 years into my IT career here, I'd advanced into kind of a team lead, a manager, and then a director of application development. And I really got to a point where I felt a little empty. I wanted more fulfillment in my career. And so I talked to Jay Tuthill, who I was reporting to at the time, and Tom Kermazzi, who's my boss now. And I said, look, I really love to have more fulfillment in life. And I do want to run my own business one day, whether it's my own or one of Tuthill's. And
sure.
Within 2 weeks' time, basically they're like, we have to get you out of IT and into corporate development. And we want to start a branding role. I've done leadership facilitation and stuff. And so our brand is centered around our people. So that was one logical reason to take an IT guy and put him into branding. The other one is just that the connection to web design and development and search engine optimization, just stuff that an IT person does that relates to branding, and also the graphics stuff that I was doing, and I was kind of doing print stuff for the company as well. So there were reasons that it made sense, and so that role I was in to help kind of balance Tuthill's brand with our product brands and to really tell our story. And
sure.
We had, I'm starting to get into that place where maybe it's not so much about me and my career, but about our purpose at Tuthill and stuff. So I'll stop there for now and let you take this where you want to next, man.
No, sure. So for people that haven't heard of Tuthill, maybe let's give a bit of an intro of the company, and kind of what you guys do, and then we'll dive deeper into kind of what you do there and what you're currently doing.
Okay, perfect. Tuthill is an industrial manufacturing company that is privately owned by the Tuthills. The company started in 1892, so we celebrated our 125th anniversary last year.
That's really cool.
It is, yeah. 4th generation, family owned. 5th generation is now in the family, and he's the president of one of our lines of business. An amazingly authentic family who cares so deeply about people. And so Tuthill, used to be a brick manufacturer. We had quarries of clay, and we had these horses that would haul the clay out of the quarry. And there was a time when these horses would not be able to handle the haul from the heat. They would drop dead of heat exhaustion. And so Jay Tuthill's great-grandfather bought a patent for a steam-powered truck to help these horses haul the clay out of the quarries. And so you'll read in some of our literature, that was how we've been saving the lives of our employees, or caring about our employees, our four-legged ones, for over 125 years. And so anyway, you don't see a lot of steam-powered trucks riding around on the streets these days.
Sure.
But inside of that truck was a lubrication pump that I'm not sure how this happened, but it became kind of the bread and butter pump product out of the Tuthill Pump Company. And today we still make it. It's called the L series pump, L for lubrication, and it's used in things like clean energy wind turbines to lubricate gearboxes. So it's crazy. A product that long ago is still something we make today.
That's great, though.
Yeah, it's cool to connect where we're at today to where we, and the whole notion of our culture, which I'll get to in a little bit with you here. But
sure,
we've been a company about heart right from the start, and that'll make more sense in a little bit. But Today, we also make vacuum and blower systems. We make fuel transfer pumps. There's a red one that you might see driving around on the back of a pickup truck that transfers fuel into tractors. Those are heavily agriculture, construction type of markets. But in general, Tut Hill's markets, we call them foundational markets. They're the ones that grow with the human population. You've got medical, food and beverage, agriculture, construction, water, wastewater treatment. Those are the markets that Tut Hill serves.
Got you. Okay. So I introduced you as a Sherpa of Purpose. What exactly is that, and how did you get that title?
Yeah. I'm smiling over here. So
that's great.
It's brand new. So new title as of yesterday, but it's been a long time in the making. When I stepped into this role of branding back in 2011, Jay Tudhill and Tom asked me to help bring what at the time was our vision, mission, values, and brand statement to traction. Like, how do we make this real? And one of our bullets in there was, to have a seismic impact on our world. And very few people could connect with that and understand exactly what that meant. And so it was time to kind of reach out and clarify what that meant. And that's actually where the story of the horse, kind of got unearthed in the why does Tut Hill, this industrial manufacturing company, care about aliveness and this company, this culture of consciousness and things like that. And so when we got to that point, we explored the history of Tut Hill and the stand for aliveness that the company was, that the Tut Hill family is, and launched that notion with kind of a rally cry. Our purpose statement is "Wake the World," and that always raises some eyebrows. It's like, what does that mean? And so we are talking about, aliveness. How do we show up in a way that has folks get the most out of their lives and live a life most fulfilled? And there's all kinds of stuff we do for our employees there. And we're just starting to take this outside of our four walls. And, but the Sherpa of Purpose, when we launched this, it was like, we're on a journey here, and it's a big one. And we kind of used a mountain climbing theme for this. So, picture yourself walking across a field, and you hit a horizon line, and up until the point where you get to that horizon line, you really only see the top of that meadow. But you get there, and now you can see what's beyond that. It's that next meadow and maybe a range of mountains. Well, that's how we've described our journey, just so people can kind of visualize it. And right now we are past that first horizon line. We described that moment in time when we discovered our purpose as a company, which was to wake the world. And now we're kind of even through that next meadow and right at the foot of the mountains. And we're talking about, how do we get from what we're doing inside Tut Hill to 7.6 billion people in the world and bring aliveness out there? Okay. And so in my role, it's been kind of a hybrid of branding and purpose. And so we just decided, let's shift some focus into just this Wake the World effort. And so the Sherpa name is really, it comes from the Himalayan people, but there's a notion of, it is a person who is a leader and a guide who's on the journey, not just someone pointing fingers saying, go there. Like, I'm in it, I'm knee deep in it. So that's really where it came from.
Interesting. And like you said earlier, you've been with them for almost a couple decades, right? Like, I think you said 17 years. So, you're obviously, like, most people don't stick around at a job for, more than 3 years, never mind almost 2 decades. So you must obviously really believe in kind of what you guys have been doing if you've been there that long. But I'm curious to know, you guys are doing this project called The Search for Aliveness. What exactly is the film about, and how did it come to be a thing?
Yeah, The Search for Aliveness is a docuseries that we're working on, and what it is about is, it's about us discovering a recipe for folks to try to feel more alive. And that's at the highest level, what it's about. And what we want to do, let me back up. Where it came from is, every year in kind of our goal setting process, we call it policy deployment here, we brainstorm and come up with ideas that'll help us achieve our goals as a business. And we always look for what are the ones that are most impactful. And so from 2015 through the beginning of 17, most of our efforts on my team have been about, let's communicate and share what our purpose is and how we want to tell our story, the websites and kind of those mechanical types of things, the brochures, speaking engagements. And it's been internally focused. And so now I was like, gosh, how do we take this outside of our four walls? What do we want to do first? And it was important for us to say, we really want to explore this notion of aliveness, because here we've declared it's our purpose, but we're by no means scientific experts on aliveness, right? We're not great philosophers on aliveness, but we're certainly curious about it. And we believe in the power of, what happens in an individual when they're themselves, when they go after what they want, and when they do it with other people. And so the documentary is an idea that actually came from one of the guys that I work with here. He's done some other documentary work, and he's like, I think we could pull this off. And we got some strong buy-in from Tom and the leadership team here. So we're running with it, and we've just started really. And the idea is to get perspectives of a lot of different people, regular people who wouldn't be considered experts in an area, but just like, because you and I mean, there are things you and I do to feel alive, right?
Sure.
And, that's one of those questions, like, what would you say you do to feel alive?
That's interesting. It used to be play music. Lately, I think partly is just like, I have a couple young kids. I think just spending time with them is really kind of been more fulfilling, I think, than a lot of things in the past. Mm-hmm. I also think partly doing the show, right? Because just being able to talk with people like yourself that are basically putting themselves out there, right? And kind of being vulnerable and having real conversations about what they're up to, right? And kind of just being real about their kind of ups and downs, the good and bad, the kind of struggles of some of this stuff, because and we'll get into this more later, but the kind of social media side of, like, everybody posts like a highlight reel of their life, where there's people that spend hours planning their like Instagram photos, or their 3 or 4 of them, to make themselves look like they have this perfect life, right? And people buy into that or get depressed because, like, they don't have this perfect life that some of the people they follow on Instagram have, right? But we all have problems, no matter how kind of rich, poor, or what part of the world you in, right? And so for me, I think just kind of discovering that and really realizing that makes me feel kind of more alive. I know it's kind of a long answer to your question, but
it's great stuff, man. I mean, I'm hearing elements of aliveness, and I'll go there in a little bit, but you talk about connection with your family. You talk about purpose and sending a big message through your podcast, and then music might tie to something like energy, or just being present and in the moment. There are facets of aliveness that we'll go out and explore with regular people and ultimately thought leaders. So if there are any like thought leaders that you're like, I am absolutely a thought leader, and I absolutely deal with aliveness. I teach people about it. I know about it. Thinking about people who really know about oxytocin, kind of the physiological side of aliveness, or the neurological side, or even just like the wellness side. Yoga instructors, meditation experts. These are people that, we want to connect with and get their perspective, so that ultimately we can blend that with just kind of the everyday person's view of what that is, and craft a recipe that people, when watching the docuseries, can say, I want to try that. That works for others. I've always wanted to try that, but I haven't. And then hopefully we find some stuff that's just way out in left field. Like we never thought of that, and some of the things. Yeah. So it's not meant to be like establishing us as kind of quantitative experts in aliveness. That's absolutely the opposite. It's more very heart-based, qualitative. Let's just get the human perspective on this term and get it out there, because it is a choice. It's something that I think we all have the ability to add in our lives, this notion of aliveness. I think about our parents, and even you as a young parent, like, I've got a couple kids too, and our parents teach us how to walk and talk, right?
Yeah.
Our teachers teach us about math and science and a bunch of other topics, reading and writing. Our coaches teach us how to be good athletes, how to be competitive, how to be good teammates. But who in the world teaches us how to get the most out of life, how to feel alive? And as I think about that, I do believe it's a very unique journey. It's up to each and every one of us to teach ourselves how to feel alive. And
Interesting.
And given all of the distractions that we are in front of every single day, I mean, how many screens are like facing you right now?
Oh, you don't even want to know.
I do.
There's six. There's six looking at me right now. I'm not kidding you.
So, and you know, here I hear things like multitasking is a myth. I mean, just the idea of overwhelming amounts of information flowing at us. When do we slow down enough to think about this kind of stuff? And this docuseries is truly meant to, in this crazy chaotic, you know, state of technology, this time that we're in, it's easy to become disconnected from other human beings, and it's easy to be distracted. So let's slow down and just think about it, because we've got this one life to live. What do we mess around with here? Let's think about it. And that's what's at the core of this exploration, this docuseries.
Interesting. So you're basically just trying to get people to think about kind of how they want to live their life, try to find some kind of, it sounds, aliveness to me is partly like happiness. I think they're kind of tied together. Would you agree with that?
Oh, I'm so glad you went there. So yes, now aliveness is tied to happiness, but that's a very small fraction of it. In fact, so when we talk about aliveness, there are 5 pillars that we're going to go and explore. And the questions that I'll ask these people that we're lucky enough to sit down with for the interview process, they will be around these 5 facets. So one of them is connection, whether that's with other human beings or with nature or even like spiritual, right? We want to explore that. One of them is energy. So that is really about, do I have the energy required to do what I want in life? And that there's a lot of wellness component in the energy one. So that's 2. The third one is being present and engaged. And so that's, am I in the moment, or am I worried about what's behind me, or scared about where I'm headed? Or am I just right now, I'm present, I'm in the moment, and I'm reflecting on how I'm feeling, you know, and that. So the fourth one is purpose. How clear am I about what it is that I want in my life? Have I slowed down to think about it? Have I named it, you know? And am I part of, you know, an organization that has a purpose or not? And does that align? Am I selling out on myself?
Sure.
And then the last one, which you touched on, so happiness, right? We look at the 5th category as, it's an acronym called SASHAY, which you may or may not have heard of, but SASHAY, it's at a high level an acronym for the full range of human emotions. So SASHET, sad, angry, scared, happy, excited, tender. And
interesting.
So happy, yes, is a part of aliveness, but as you look at it from the perspective that we are, it's a small portion. I mean, a real life story for me when I think about aliveness, which embodies all of those emotions, including sad, angry, scared, which are ones that lead to addiction. People try to numb that part of their lives, what they're seeing in those emotions. And that's alcoholism, drug addiction, you name it. I mean, that's what people don't like feeling. They're still, as humans, we get to feel all that stuff, and that's great. You know, I believe it's great to embrace that. And yet here I am. So story for me, I am at one of my uncle's funerals, and I'm in the church, and I'm very tuned into this because I've got coaching and I'm talking about aliveness, and I'm just trying to notice within myself, what do I do when I'm numbing? I'm not letting myself feel what my heart wants me to feel. And so, I mean, we've all been there, at a funeral or at a wake, all of a sudden a wave of sadness overtakes me, and I am fighting, you know, as hard as I can not to cry. You know, it's like the atom clenching up. I'm like, oh gosh, you know, and, you know, just trying to put on I don't know about a happy face, and like, what's behind that? Why do we do that? What is wrong with crying? What is wrong with being vulnerable? Isn't that, you know, something that like, I want to teach my kids that's A-okay. Don't be afraid of how you look in front of other people. And so there's so much depth in this conversation, and it's so fun to break it down into the smaller pieces and explore that. Like, and
that's interesting. Yeah. Cause it's kind of like how I think of it, and is basically when you're a little kid, you don't really understand what's kind of acceptable and not acceptable to kind of do in public, right? It could be kind of crying or, just like screaming at the top of your lungs, or, like at some age, you basically, somebody or you or whoever or society kind of teaches you kind of the do's and don'ts of what's acceptable kind of publicly. And I think to your point, like, and I would probably say this as kind of a male, like it's kind of not really acceptable to cry in public, right? In a lot of circumstances, I think it's kind of ridiculous. If you want to cry, who cares, right? But like, I think just like general, and maybe it's a very overgeneralization, I think kind of it's not really, you kind of maybe would get looked at funny or kind of maybe even get made fun of for crying in public.
Yeah, maybe.
Like, which is crazy, right?
Well, yeah. What's with that? Where did that come from? Why?
Who cares?
Why does that perpetuate?
Yeah.
I believe that it's because we're not thinking about it. For me, so much about aliveness is awareness and choice. So like I know about it. What am I doing about it? And when I do nothing about it, that's also a choice. And just here's one for you that I love, and it's this notion of the conditioned human versus the human condition. And
okay,
I think that's what you're speaking to. It's like, gosh, there are just some things like, how in the world did it ever become quote unquote wrong to cry in public? Or, they're just examples of things that we've put in a box and left there in this world.
Yep.
And why not dig them out and re-explore them and see if that's really what we want today. That's that kind of looking forward mentality that I believe aliveness has a lot to do with.
Interesting. So before we kind of dive a little bit deeper into what you guys are doing, why does Tuthill care about doing a project like this? Because obviously, I can see how they tie to what you guys are doing kind of from a corporate side of things, but it's very much a bit kind of away from kind of obviously your traditional kind of business model. So why would they want to actually do a project like this?
Yeah, man, great question. And so we've got this document, we call it our compass. It's a pretty progressive vision, mission, values, brand document that really guides us on our way. It's at this every conversation, all our goal setting. And when we talk about projects like this, so we've got this notion of we're an ingenious company, and that company exists to support flourishing families and spirited communities. And so talking to our employees who are 600 extremely hardworking, dedicated employees of Tuthill that are all over the United States, a little bit in China, a little bit in the UK. These people are providing the fuel for our rocket to do things like this. So the notion of waking the world is a very selfless, I'd say, legacy-driven purpose and intention that Jay Tuthill and his family, he wants to create that for the Tuthill family, so that we're not going to reach 7.6 billion people in my lifetime. God, that'd be amazing if we did. But
sure,
the idea is Tuthill's here for a long time. We've got a clear purpose as a company, and the pumps and things that we make and sell are really the fuel for the rocket. This is our first, like I said, external facing effort. It is almost like a public service project, and we believe in it because the leadership retreats that we have done here since 2004 have untapped potential in so many people, and it's shown up in ways like, a woman who's worked in the shop floor for essentially her entire adult career. People in communities that are employed by factories often work in the factories, A, because mom and dad work there, B, because that's it's close to home and it's a good paycheck, or there's a number of reasons. But they often sometimes just like level out there. That's the pinnacle of my career. I've made it. That's what I'm going to do to make a living. It's what I know. And breathing a little bit of this purpose and aliveness into these people's lives where they otherwise wouldn't be looking for it. We call that, creating space for hearts to thrive. They then get to see, holy cow, I do get to make choices that shape my life and where I go. I'm not just being pushed along by the river. I get to surf this sucker, and so this one woman on the shop floor, again, she went through our retreats and decided she wanted to kind of stretch herself a little further, and had always had interest in being in the Air Force. So she took a test to, I think, be a mechanic in the Air Force and did really well on it. And they said, you could be a lot more than a mechanic. And so her career advanced, she left the shop floor, went into customer service, and then ultimately she left and she's in the Air Force Reserves now. So
interesting.
It's really cool to see, we'll hear stories about, you saved my marriage. And it's not us who saved our marriage. They saved their marriage, but their awareness of how to approach the situation might have done that. We've also had stories of what you taught me helped me to decide to get out of my marriage because I wasn't happy, or to spend more time with my family, or to leave Tuthill. Like, we've had people leave Tuthill because of the clarity they've obtained by slowing down and thinking about what they want and the choices available to them. And so that's really cool stuff. And again, taking that and the awareness that exists around aliveness out into the forward world, we want to see what becomes possible there. We don't know what kind of partnerships are going to come knocking on our door. Not like, transactional partnerships, like who's out there that might be able to help us do this, and what are we doing, and there's still some questions we have to answer, but the idea is we're much more than a for-profit company. We believe we can have an impact much greater than making pumps and, making money.
No, I think that's actually quite fascinating. And you brought up something that I think not a lot of companies care about, is like, they're always so focused on kind of trying to keep their people, at kind of no matter what cost, and if that person's even miserable. But what you kind of mentioned is actually something that's kind of fascinated me lately, is like, if your company helps somebody either find something new within the company and they keep working for the company, or if they find something in themselves and they kind of move on, they will always remember what your company did for them in their life. And yeah, they might come back at some point and work for you, but they will recommend their friends and family and others probably for the rest of their life to come work for you guys, because of the positive experience they had kind of working for you, and even kind of, letting themselves kind of walk away from your company. Right. And I think a lot more companies need to think about it like that, because it's kind of crazy to think that you're going to start a company and nobody's ever going to leave. Right. Like, in the history of kind of since business was a thing, basically somebody's left a company at some point for some reason, good, bad, or other. Like, so I think just kind of adopting that and kind of accepting that, like you guys have, is actually really innovative in itself.
It is. It's, the whole idea of work-life balance is something that we'll talk about occasionally here. It's like, work is part of life. Why separate them? And if we find overlap between what an individual's purpose is and what it is that they want is important to them, and what they might be doing, at work, that's even better, because now there's alignment and more motivation, more purpose. And, but that's where it starts with each one of us, though. Like, so Todd Hill's not going to be here and like say, that's your purpose. It's an exploration, and a challenge to get clear on what it is that I want. How often have you sat down and be like, what do I want? And answer that.
Yeah. It's pretty rare, right? I think a lot of people don't do it very often, if ever.
Right. And then take it a step further. Why do I want that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Interesting. So what types of people are you looking for to actually have in the project?
Well, yeah.
You mentioned it quickly, but I want to kind of dive a bit deeper into that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we started by, kind of paring down a list of personas that we want to interview for reasons that, in our conversations, we believe would be interesting perspectives on aliveness. And so some of the examples of that would be a military service member who's seen combat firsthand and maybe has even taken a life.
Okay.
What is it that their perspective on aliveness looks like? There are, we all know that the burly dude who doesn't want to talk about the touchy-feely stuff, and
sure.
But maybe deep down they have a huge heart and are really interested in exploring the touchy-feely stuff. They just don't like talking about it. So want to try. That might be a tough one to get. How about those millennials? I mean, they get a bad rap, and it's like, what a bummer for them. And like, how can we find a millennial to explore what aliveness looks like to them, just so we have appreciation for that, and maybe break down some of the stereotypes that generation faces. The adrenaline junkies, how does aliveness show up for them? The people who are, skydiving and things like that, want to look at someone with great celebrity, someone with some pull there. Like, how does that impact their lives? They can't walk in public with their family, for crying out loud. And so what's their take on it? And as I go back to those 5 categories of aliveness, I think diving deep into those would be really kind of eye-opening. And I believe deep down there will be some, regardless of class, culture, race, religion. I just want to see, like, is there a set of universal things? It just doesn't matter. These are the things people do to feel alive. And that's where we kind of start to get to that. What's the recipe we're going to craft and share at the end of this exploration? But yeah,
interesting.
Yeah, we have this list. It's on the searchforaliveness.com under casting call. And we're looking for people that want to apply to be interviewed. And we'll come to you. We'll come talk with you. We want to see what it is that you do to feel alive, if you're willing to share that. And if it's not you, but you know someone that fits these, recommend them. I mean, we're going to call people, and like I said, we're just getting started here. We've only done 1 interview so far.
Okay.
And it was with someone that lives in extreme poverty in Mexico. We went down there and talked to her to get her story. So really, really cool.
Okay.
And then the thought.
So you're looking for people globally. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely.
Interesting. And you'll fly anywhere.
Yeah, man, within reason, we can get there.
Sure. And no, that's really great. That's why I think just coordinating all this and finding the people in itself is quite a challenge, right?
Yeah.
That are willing to kind of talk about it.
Absolutely. It is. And yeah, so we just did the press release on this about a week ago, and I think we've had, I'd say, just 5 or 6 submissions of people who are like, yes, I am this person. And, we're going to get into that phase of screening, kind of. We go talk to them and see what their story is and why this was attractive to them. And yeah, that sharing requires vulnerability. It absolutely does. And like you mentioned earlier, people are more prone to sharing the good in their life, the happy in their life, not the garbage. And so we're not looking to make this, the showcase of everyone's garbage, but we want it to be real. We want it to be unfiltered. And
sure.
Because I believe too, authenticity is a part of aliveness. And that's being okay with who you are and your truth, your story.
Sure. So we talked a bit about kind of disconnecting before we kind of started recording. What does that kind of mean to you, and how does that kind of fit into the aliveness that we've been talking about?
Yeah, disconnecting. Oh my gosh. So for me, I have felt, raising 2 young boys, I have felt the shift of say disconnection and lack of interest in exploration. And so the way that showed up for me was, you guys have seen the small babies who could just barely sit up on their own, interact with an iPad, right? Like it's there. It's the built-in babysitter. And if it's not the iPad, it's the phone, or it's the DVD, whatever. I mean, you're streaming Netflix, it doesn't matter. That and social media has made it so easy to be disconnected and still feel like you're living. Like you get some of the dopamine stuff that you get from, seeing, being part of a game on a winning team, or there's just so many, as IRL, right, in real life experiences that I think are taking a backseat to the digital ones. And again, I'm a guy, I love digital, I love technology, and I'm aware that this being always connected might be actually, changing, de-evolutionizing us as humans.
Interesting.
I don't know where that's going to go. I'm not the scientist, but holy smokes, man. Short-term memory. We don't need it. We don't need to remember anything because it's always there. It's on our phone. How often do people say, I don't know anymore?
Yeah. No, fair. So I'm curious though to get your thoughts on what about the people that say or feel fulfilled about kind of living their entire life online. There's even like Second Life was big a number of years ago. I don't know if it's still big, but where you literally live your entire life virtually.
That would be a great perspective for us to explore. Like, so what facets of our aliveness, kind of perspective, do they feel like they're getting fulfilled online? So say Connection's one of those. They have a community that they're a part of. They might actually be experiencing the feelings of that, but what about the oxytocin side of it? What about the actual chemicals that are released in exchange between human beings when you're in close contact or you see some, so that's a great area of curiosity for me. I'd love to explore that. I'd love to.
Sure.
And I don't know what that perspective looks like because I haven't been immersed in that way with technology,
Sure. So how do you disconnect personally?
Oh my gosh. So I go fishing where there's no signals. So
no, that's great.
Yeah. I mean, we go up to northwestern Illinois and fish, and there's a cell phone tower up there that I don't have that carrier, and my signal stinks, and I love it. I go out there and I'm with my wife and my two boys, and we're floating around on the boat, and we're, just catching some bass, and not a worry in the world, man. That's the easiest, most straightforward way for me to detach. And again, it's because I can't connect literally. Sure. Yeah. So
yeah.
That's been great.
No, that's rare. It's rare to find somewhere that you can't get cell service that you can kind of just hang out at. Right. Yeah. So no, I think that's great.
Yeah, for sure. Another way, I mean, just self-taught acoustic guitar. I'd say I stink, but it's something
it doesn't matter, right?
It doesn't matter at all. And I always wanted to kind of play around a bonfire, and I've got a big family. My mom's one of 12, and we do annual family reunions. And so a few years back, I put together like a 26 song set, little Tom Petty, a little, Lumineers, whatever. And it took a ton of courage. But played some songs, sang along, and had the whole family going. And that's another, that disconnect to learn a song, to hold an instrument. Technology enables that, right? But I'm having an in real life experience. Thank God for YouTube and all the different ways to learn guitar. Sure. But that feeling and the feeling and sense of achievement that comes with actually doing it versus seeing someone else do it or virtually doing it, I can't imagine that can be topped. It's a really good feeling.
No, I 100% agree. I think everybody should have kind of a creative outlet. It doesn't matter if you're good or bad at it. If you can just kind of get some peace and just some kind of relaxation and you can kind of check out, I think it makes sense. And if you write songs and you never play them for anybody, but you can get some sort of kind of disconnection and you can kind of just mellow out a little bit, I think that makes a lot of sense, right?
Yeah. And it's for each person to explore how they want that. I mean, for me, I love nature. Like,
okay,
it's great to get out there and to feel it, to smell the air, to hear the sounds, and that, the senses that we have to this date can't fully be mimicked electronically. It's getting close, right? With VR.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's so much to go and explore out there in nature. And that's something I feel strongly about. I don't know, what that is for others. But to slow down and think about what that is and realize when you find it, what becomes possible is a big deal.
No, I 100% agree with you. I think it's actually quite fascinating. It's a lot, I think. Well, I'm 35, just so you have some context. Sure. So I'm like just a millennial. But the thing that I found is the stuff that you kind of think about that really matters to you in your teens or 20s may or may not matter to you in your kind of 30s, right? And it's one of those things that you almost, at least for me, you've kind of had to pick different things that have kind of disconnected you throughout your as you get older. At least for me, I've kind of found that, right? And there's been times, like for me, I try to use like on the evenings and weekends, sometimes I just use like an older phone. Like I literally take the SIM card out of my phone, or I have a US and Canadian phone number, but like I'll use an older phone on the weekends that doesn't have all the email notifications and all the other kind of apps and stuff. And the phone's brutally slow. So like literally I just use it if I need to make a call or like get a text message, partly because that to me is like, I just get so many notifications in a day, but just being able to kind of disconnect from the digital world by just using a crappier phone really works for me. And then I find like I'm not checking it constantly when I'm like trying to play with the kids or something, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say, what is it that has you want to disconnect or to have that crappier low tech phone? What is really behind that?
Yeah, well, a lot of it's just, not being on it, right? Because I remember years ago when my daughter was quite young, it's like she was doing something. I can't remember exactly what she was doing, but like, you like miss these moments because you're staring at the screen. Or if I go see like live music and you're recording or taking photos of the band, you're like literally watching the show through your phone. Well, then why wouldn't you just watch the band live on YouTube, right? Like stuff like that kind of got me thinking about it. It's like, just put your phone away and enjoy the experience. Maybe take a photo or two or shoot a quick video. Sure. Like, I'm not saying don't do that, but you can see like there'll be somebody in the crowd that's literally like on their phone or like shooting the whole concert. And you're just like, you're not even at the concert. Like you're physically at the concert, but mentally you're in your phone. So that's always kind of something that's kind of been fascinating me lately, is just kind of enjoying the moment, right?
Absolutely, man. That's that present and engaged, pillar of aliveness. It's in the moment. Am I fully present? Why is it important for me to take a video or picture of it? Is it so I can remember it later? I get that. Or is it so everyone else can see how cool I am? Okay, that's not for me. That's for others.
Sure.
And just that whole, the being present piece. What does that feel like? And it's, again, if we don't capture it, it didn't happen, kind of, right? I forget the saying for it, but
yeah. I know what you're talking about. Yeah. No, that's interesting. So we're kind of coming to the end of the show, but I want to kind of give a little bit more of a quick overview to kind of close out the show.
Mm-hmm.
What exactly is the Search for Aliveness? How can people kind of get involved and get more information about what you guys are doing?
Yeah. So the Search for Aliveness right now, it's we have 6 episodes planned for it, which will be that journey that is interviewing these people who are willing to share their perspectives on their lives and how they discover aliveness, how they feel fulfillment. And we want to take that, share it, see what kind of human truths exist in that, regardless of any of the social class, geography, religion, money, all that stuff, so that people can try some stuff out. And hopefully it does it causes a pause for people to think about it and to really live more intentionally, to choose every day to create what it is that they want. And so the idea is to have a couple episodes ready this year and then, move more into next year. And we're looking for people to really courageously step in and share their stories with us and everyone else who watches it, so that I think this really important part of our lives, which is aliveness, can spread. And again, from our point of view, it's like, let's get everybody. And you know what, if it gets to the point where we need to get this thing in more and more languages, that's a great problem to have, And so anybody who's out there listening who can apply or recommend or share what we're doing with organizations that you feel are like-hearted, they are up to what we're up to, contact me directly and let's start a conversation. Can't do this alone.
So how many do you plan? Like you mentioned 6, but like, is it kind of like going to be an ongoing project, or you're just going to shoot a bunch and kind of see what happens? Or have you thought about that far yet?
Thought about it. And so there's a lot of learning. I've never done a documentary.
Okay.
I just the whole notion of how to monetize something like this is new to me. And some of the folks that we're working with on the PR side are like, yeah, that's a possibility. Netflix could pick this up.
Sure.
We've got a lot to deliver before we get to that point. And yeah, if this continues to kind of fund itself as a project, where we can explore deeper and deeper and reach more and more, that would be amazing. That would be amazing. And so, yeah, we've started with kind of a small, realistic goal. It's not really small, but something that we felt was realistic given our time frame here. And yeah, man, it'd be really cool to see this thing blow up.
Sure. No, I think that's actually quite fascinating. And I love the fact that you're open to talk about, you don't really know where this is going to go, right? Because I think so many people that do these kind of big projects sometimes will talk like, oh yeah, it's going to go here and here and here. It's like, well, maybe, like, and I hope it does, but you don't know, right? And I think just the fact that you guys are kind of open about where you're kind of on this journey and where it could potentially go, I think is actually quite fascinating.
You know, thanks for bringing that up again too. So we have this group of people here at Tuthill. It's a team of folks that are coaches, and they're our Awaken You team. So it's like the Tuthill University, Awaken University.
Okay.
Yeah, the vision is that they'll open the doors to the public to teach and hold the retreats that we do internally within like the next 5 years. And so those folks, you know, so I'm on the brand team, right? And a lot of what we do is promote. And very intentionally, what we promote is authentic promotion, just like the story of our culture and why Tuthill cares about hearts and people. Like, that's not something we fabricated for storytelling. It's real. And as we presented this idea of the documentary to them, they requested, you know, and it was cool, don't go out and just pitch aliveness as the best thing in the world. Please just be open to what you might learn as you explore it. And that actually led into the name. Like, it was going to be like the Aliveness Project, but we're like, you know what, this is a search. We're not out here with an agenda as experts. We truly want to go on behalf of people who care about life, getting the most out of it and aliveness. Let's go explore that on their behalf. This is a project we're privileged enough to have, you know, Tuthill sponsor for that reason. And I love that advice, because it does help me to say, you know, even though right now I'm talking to you about 5 pillars of aliveness, there might be 10. And, you know, how about numbness? Let's explore that and see what's going on. And, you know, and just, again, it's almost like a public service video. But with that open mind, it don't know where it's going to go. And I hope people love it and want more.
No, I think it's great, man. But sadly, we're out of time. So let's close the show with mentioning where people can get more information about Tuthill, the project, and anything else you want to mention.
Absolutely. So for Tuthill, you can go to, you know, www.tuthill.com to learn more about our culture and our story. Just click on the Our Story link. For the actual documentary, it's thesearchforaliveness.com. And if you're, you know, thinking about, you know, somebody that, or you want to see the roles that we're casting for, just click on casting call up at the top. Kevin, I don't know if you'll share my contact information, but feel free to do so along this podcast, so people can reach out to me. I'd love to talk with anyone who's interested or has ideas for us in this journey.
Sure, man. I have no problem passing that along.
Thank you.
But Chad, I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to be on the show, and I look forward to keeping in touch with you, and have a good rest of your day, man.
It was my pleasure, man. Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks very much. Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. To join the free community, buy some merch, sponsor the show, or sign up for the newsletter, please visit the website at buildingthefutureshow.com. The music for the show is done by Electric Mantra. You can check him out at electricmantra.com and keep building the future.